All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading down to Memphis, Tennessee to catch up with Ed Easley, owner-founder of Easley Baseball Club. Ed, how you doing, man?
All good. Thanks for having me.
And I should also state, in addition to Easley Baseball Club, Elevate is your facility right there in Memphis, right?
That's right. We have two here locally, one in North Mississippi and then one in the Memphis area.
Right on, right on. Well, I'm sure we'll probably touch on those things in a little bit. But if you're tuning in to listen to this, this is, I don't know, I've lost track, episode something like 160 plus. And every once in a while, we get a guest that I actually have zero interactions with until we literally hit record. So you guys are getting to know Ed in real time with me. So because of that, I'm just going to pass the mic over to Ed and just let him introduce himself. So if you want to give sort of like a little bit of your background, you don't have to go all the way back to T-ball or kindergarten, but just give us sort of your brief background and then walk us up to that moment where Easley Baseball Club sort of got its foundation, and then we'll jump in and go from there.
Sure. So, small town Mississippi, which Mississippi just across the state line, south of Memphis. Grew up at Olive Branch, Mississippi. Went to Olive Branch High School. Played 4 years there. Committed to Mississippi State my senior year of high school, which is unique.
That's how it was back then, right?
That's right. Went on to Mississippi State, played for 3 years, had an opportunity, got drafted out of Mississippi State in 2007 by the Arizona Diamondbacks. Ended up playing with 3 organizations. Made it to the big leagues in 2015 with St. Louis Cardinals. Played one more season, 2016, back in AAA with Pittsburgh Pirates in Indianapolis, and then decided I was done. I was starting a family, starting to have kids. Had been traveling the country for the last 10 years and hotels and bus rides, and was just ready to move on with something else in my life. And for the transition, I linked back up with an organization here locally just to kind of keep me going in baseball and doing lessons and camps and clinics and helping with whatever was needed to help with, and realized that if that maybe wasn't going to be what was next for me, so I took a step back and I started interviewing for medical sales and insurance sales jobs, and slowed down again and realized this isn't really what I wanted to do. And all of a sudden, me and a buddy got together and decided, you know what, let's start our own organization. June of 2016, we went live on social media with a new logo and some plans in place, and had our first tryout. We created 12 teams year one, and fast forward to 7 years later, we're sitting at about 60 teams. So we'll stop there, and that's kind of where we're at.
That's incredible. You know what, in the professional world, especially in the sales world, which is such a competitive space, ex-athletes tend to do really well. But it's not for everyone, which you found out. You didn't dig it. I also sort of took a similar path, not the Major League Baseball version of yours, but when I got out of college, I jumped into a sales job, an insurance sales job. Hated it. So it's not for everybody. So I'm glad you didn't just stick with it. Was there any thought of having been in baseball for so long, since you were probably 4 or 5 years old, where you just had this did it ever cross your mind to say, let me put the baseball in the rear view completely and stick with these sales gigs? Or did you just know, I got to get back to baseball?
No, I was considering it because, like you said, people that I knew around town that were successful leaders in these industries were really trying to push me for these jobs because they knew my competitiveness. So I was really giving it some thought and almost took a couple of these positions, but something clicked, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to give this baseball organization stuff a run first. And a lot of people kind of warned me with that too and said be careful with all these youth teams and having to deal with all the stuff that comes along with it. But I went with it and surrounded myself with good people and tried to do things the right way, and here we are. I'm very thankful and love what I do.
So in case anybody needs to try and connect with Easley Baseball, I'm on their Twitter page right now. You can go to @Easley, that's EASLEY Baseball C. All right, that's Easley Baseball C. That's that C stands for club. Or you can connect over. Ed's got his Twitter, Ed Easley 4. Ed Easley 4. You can connect with him over there. And while I'm at it, dropping links, EasleyBaseball.com is the link to the website. And if you go there, guys, you're going to see a very good-looking, sharp website. And quite honestly, kind of cool logo, cool branding. I dig that stuff. And not everybody does the branding and logo stuff well. So when I see one that stands out, I like to bring attention to it. Is that something you came up with? So if you for obviously you guys listening, basically it's a E and a B that are just kind of superimposed on each other. That is in a very cool fashion. Was that your design? Did you have somebody draw that up for you?
Yeah, I had somebody draw it up. My wife graduated high school with a guy that does this for a living. And so we connected, and I think he lives out in Houston, Texas, and told him what my vision was, and he drew about 10 different logos on paper. And then we circled about 2 or 3 of them that I thought I would like, and then he kind of made them come to life. And so he's a big part of kind of our brand and how it all got started because, like you see, it is just a simple, unique logo that I get a lot of compliments on. But another thing is with my name in it, Easley Baseball Club, I wasn't too excited about having my name in it, but people kept saying, look, we got to go with it. People are kind of know who you are. You're fresh out of the game in this area. I think it'll be a big part of it. So we try to, use the EBC a lot. We try to use the EB logo. But again, a lot of people across the country don't know me personally. They know it just as Easley Baseball or EBC. So I don't, worry too much about it being my name.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're happy with the logo and the color combos and
yeah, it's sharp.
Good stuff.
It's sharp. That story sounds a little bit reminiscent of people seem to like my black and lime green with this little stick figure looking thing, and my logo was designed by my arch nemesis growing up. He was always on the opposite. Like the other good little league team from me. And then we ended up playing middle school, high school baseball together. And long story short, he was drafted, I think it was the 14th round out of high school, ended up going to school and became a graphic designer. Never ended up playing pro ball, but became a professional graphic designer. And so when it came time to looking for a logo, I went to my former arch nemesis. So pretty funny. And yeah. That stuff is it just catches my eye. So let's I want to ask you like one question about your pro experience that's not about just like how awesome, like you made it to the big leagues, awesome, lots of dudes do that every year, but I want to ask you how did the struggle, I mean, because like everybody wants to get there, but it's not super simple. It's not easy. Even you got there and it was still a struggle to maintain, a struggle to stay there. How do you think that struggle has impacted you long term?
Well, it's a good question, and I really feel like it's a huge reason why I'd like to say I'm successful at what we're doing is because of the 9 years in the minor leagues before making it to the big leagues. was just had so much time to just sit back and soak stuff in and learn from different people, and started my career in Yakima, Washington for a season, and then repeated in California League for 2 years, and then came back south and played 3 years in Mobile, in Reno, Nevada, and AAA, and so you just cross paths with so many people, and you have so many bad nights at the plate and struggle, and you just got to kind of figure stuff out. But I would say a big reason why I have the business mind and the structure today is because I treat my organization like a minor league system. We have several teams at every age group, and not every age group and every team is on the same playing field like a single A, double A, triple A team. And so we have our tryouts, we create teams, we structure our teams in different level teams. And I kind of spent a lot of time with a guy named Mike Bell, who was he was my manager in rookie ball, and then moved up the ranks as I moved up, and was a farm director for the Arizona Diamondbacks for a few years, and made it into the front office, I think, in the major leagues with Arizona, and unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. But just sitting in the office as I got older in my career and having conversations with him and understanding why things happen the way they happen in pro ball, and why I'm having to repeat single A for another year when I was a first-round pick, and why I'm having to repeat double A for 3 years. And so just different stories like that and different things that I came across in my career really helped me explain to these parents that have young kids, what to expect and why people think a certain way, and why kids need to experience certain things and fail and learn from failures. And it doesn't matter really where you're at 11 or 12 or 13, because by the time you're 17 or 18, you could be a top-tier player committed to an SEC school. So,
yeah. So, let's pull on that thread a little more. I mean, no offense, these kids have no idea who you are at this point. Some of these young guys weren't born when you were drafted, right? And some of these young parents, they know you more as the guy that runs the facility and runs these teams, not as this guy who struggled for 10 years, made it to the big leagues, went down, up, down, up. What do you think is sort of some of the differentiators of the current iteration of Easley Baseball Club? What makes y'all unique?
Yeah, good question. So there's a lot of organizations that are starting to franchise their teams all over the country and put their uniforms on different groups, and that's good. That's kind of what it's coming to. I just haven't done that yet, and we're going into our 7th season. If we have 700 kids in our organization, then I'd be lying if I told you I knew them all 700 very,
right,
very well. But I know a very, very high percentage of every one of our kids, and I'm talking in the 90 percentile range of, who they are, and I could put a name with their face, and I know kind of where they're from or where they go to high school and what their strengths and weaknesses are as a player. And so when we put these teams together, these kids have a pretty tight bond of knowing each other and growing up with each other. And then fortunately our teams, 13U through 17U that are going to compete in some of these big events across the country are having success. And I think it's a little bit to do with our camaraderie and our team chemistry and our parents. And so I think that's probably the biggest unique thing, is that I still have a real tight grasp on our group. I know all of my coaches personally. I know all of our players. I know a large group of our parents. I'm able to have conversations with them about their kids and help them make decisions for their kids. So who's to say that it'll always be at this, level? But for now, I don't have a plan to change it. I just want to continue to grow things around here locally and slowly expand into different areas, but not quickly, and continue to know all of our players and parents and have relationships with them.
Yeah, I dig that. It sounds like a pretty intimate feel. I think when I was a lot younger, I used to have kind of a little bit of a gripe about the big organizations, and now I think I changed my attitude right away, where I just sort of said it's not good or bad. It's just different, and it works for some clubs, and that's cool. We've had the head dudes from some of the biggest organizations in the country on this podcast. You know what? We've also had guys who run one team with 15 players on this podcast, and literally everything in between. And I don't think you're wrong or right. I just think whatever's working for you. And I always try to remember, for my own sake, and then also say it out loud just in case this helps somebody else's. Bigger is not always better. Sometimes it is, but not always. And so cool. If it's working for you to have everybody under one roof, and be able to know the player, know their mom and dad, that's awesome, man. Because
a big part of my job is to help these kids get to the next level that want to, and so my relationship with these college coaches is important, where they can trust what I say and value my opinion on the players. And so, to be able to know these kids and their strengths and weaknesses, and to be honest with the coaches about a kid, it's important to me. I mean, we just left 2 SEC schools over the last 2 weeks and doing some workouts with some of our players, and heading to another Division I school here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And I can stand by a college coach and say, hey, here's what his academics are like. Here's what he's good at. Here's what he needs to work on. So it's pretty fun, and I'm blessed to do it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, listen, I'm actually for one time, I'm the one who's on a little bit of a time crunch today. We don't have to hang up now, but I want to try and pepper you with some of these questions I sent ahead of time. Not necessarily as a rapid fire, but I definitely want to touch on a couple of these. The first one's sort of like a softball sometimes. What is a book, a movie, a website, a Twitter account that you like, that you go to, or that you might share with your players or coaches or even parents? Is there something you like to sort of lean on? Is there a resource, a book, or anything like that?
Yeah, 2 things I'll hit on real quick. Maybe silly, but the movie Sandlot, it's just
I love it.
It's a group of kids going out playing ball. Parents letting the kids just kind of hit the neighborhood and play and go get better and have fun. Those are the days that I wish we could have back, that we're not worried too much about letting the kids go out and play and what's going to happen, or being so strict about the practice times and how many we're doing per week.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty neat. And then the Mike Matheny manifesto, I have it on my website. Matheny was my manager in St. Louis in 2015. And when he talks a little bit about the playing time and kind of helping the parents understand how it needs to be handled and what the expectations are, I think that's pretty neat. Yeah,
we in a recent episode with Brian Bambanek out of Minnesota, we got into a very long conversation about a ton of different books, and that was one of them that came up. And that's definitely on my short list of baseball books that I recommend. That is such a good one. Your first recommendation of Sandlot just immediately made me think about. I have a 7-year-old. He'll be 8 here in a couple months,
Me too.
and one of his classmates is playing for some travel team, and they're practicing like 3 days a week. They're playing on the weekends, and they got fancy uniforms. And I'm just thinking, like, what in the world are we doing? Like, he's 7, and like he, like, when you mentioned, hey, these kids need to be like roaming the neighborhood, playing some just like pickup ball or what we used to play cup ball, right? Like Little League game would end and we would go over, next to the concession stand where we would ball up literally a paper cup and just get after it like that. And that doesn't exist anymore, does it? It's so structured.
Yeah, and there's some good things about being structured, but just in general, just the idea of the Sandlot baseball needs to come back.
Yeah. There is a guy named James Lowe, call him Coach Ballgame. Had him on the podcast years ago, and he actually calls his program Sandlot Baseball, and he's based out of Southern California. If anybody hears this, look up Coach Ballgame on Twitter, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. He's the most positive dude, and he literally will show up to a yard, to a public park, throw down some bags. He brings a hand drum with him. He's singing songs. He's making up nicknames. There's videos of him where he will rattle off nicknames that he's memorized for these kids, of like 50 kids in a row. And I believe he's actually done some partnership stuff with the MLB and taken the Sandlot concept on the road. It's a cool thing, and
that's cool.
We had him on the podcast a couple years ago before he got sort of like internet famous. Let me ask you one more, because this one can go in a million different directions. What do you think is one change that could be made to travel baseball that would have the biggest positive impact?
I think it just recently happened. The recruiting rules, it slowed it down. It's kind of gotten away from the early commitments. The kid cannot be offered until they're August 1st of their junior year in high school. It's what was in place back when I was in high school, being recruited in summer ball, and they kind of got away from it, and half the kids that were being committed never made it to where they were committed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so this new rule that NCAA came out with is good all the way around for the college coaches, the high school players and their parents, and it's allowing the kids to kind of slow down and be kids and let them grow and develop and mature.
Yeah. Let me throw out this perhaps an unintended consequence, because you've now been through this firsthand with lots of your guys. Is there any truth or validity to the fact that now on the day that the phones can ring, the phones are ringing and offers are being made from a coach to a kid with no relationship really having been established, because there wasn't that year of conversations and relationship building? Does that question even make sense?
It does, and it happens. But I think what the college coach would explain to you why is they've got to be able to let the kid know quickly that they want them, and then their next step in the conversation is setting up a visit to get together with the family and the kid, and then start the process of learning. Because it may be a kid that was a late bloomer, and because of what the rule started last year. And so sometimes these college coaches have already had contact with the kid, and that August 1st is just a continued conversation and finally an offer. But like you're saying, could be the first time to ever talk to a kid and you get an offer. But these kids are so hungry to go to some of these colleges these days. That's just what it takes from the college coach. And so you're right. It's where we are these days.
Would you say the positives greatly outweigh that small negative? The positives of just pumping the brakes for a couple of years?
Yeah, because a kid could commit on the spot when a college coach calls on August 1st, no doubt, and it'd be okay, because that's where this kid's always wanted to go, and that's where he deserves to go. But most of the time, the family is going to have other options, and they're going to sit back and take the time to take their visits and build a relationship with the coaches and then make an educated decision.
The reality is, because I remember when this rule passed, and it was like filling up my Twitter timeline. Everybody was just like pontificating on the positives and negatives. The reality is, it really only impacts a small number of guys. Let's be it's the really good players. It's not.
That's right.
This isn't going to impact your average guy or below average guy. It's a handful of guys. That's what I would think we could refer to as some serious first world problems. You know what? Cool. Good for, if your phone rings on August 1st and you get an offer from some guy you don't really have a relationship with, man, how blessed are you? Good for you.
75% are not being recruited or offered until middle or end of their junior year anyway. So You're right. This is a small percentage of people that it impacted, but
yeah. If anything, it actually, I think maybe the extra unintended positive side effect was that mid-major that used to feel obligated to make offers to kids, maybe they're not even, you know what I mean? Like that helps them slow down, because there was such this keeping up with the Joneses mentality that mid-majors were offering mediocre players that were sophomores just because they felt they had to do something.
That's right.
So I think that's a tremendous identification of a positive thing that's had a really good impact on the travel baseball world. Coach, I want to promise you a second episode to come back and dig deeper. Our schedules, I'll just admit, I'm an East Coast guy. You're one time zone behind, and I blew it today, so I have shortchanged you. But I got another call I've got to jump on. I appreciate you coming on. Do you have any sort of final words of wisdom for any mom or dad, any players, parents, or coaches who might still be listening?
I mean, you got to have a great support cast to do what I do. So from the top to my mom and dad, who's supported me since, like you said, I started playing at 4 and 5 and didn't miss a college game of mine, home or away. That's pretty
big time.
Pretty special.
Yeah.
And then a wife and 3 kids who allow me to head out the door on the weekends and be with my team, and ultimately help support my family. So I'm blessed, and I'm thankful to be around good people. And I tell people all the time that ask how I did it, I've put myself around good people. And if you're listening and you're part of EBC, it's because of you. So thank you.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. We'll end it right there. Don't hang up. Let me stop the recording. Don't hang up.